Welcome to the PVN College Podcast, where our goal is to grow students in the love and knowledge of Jesus Christ. In today's episode, we're going to talk about foster care in Rome, Georgia, and how college students can help. Our guest today is Mary Margaret Mauer. Mary Margaret is the Senior Vice President of Foster Care Services for Global Impact International and co-founder of Restoration Rome. She has served as an officer or board member for multiple local child service organizations and is co-founder of the Floyd Faith Coalition for Families. She studied neurobiology at Emory and completed her PhD in biological sciences at Georgia State University. Mary Margaret, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It is great to be here. We love our college students.
Yes, we do too. We do too. And I will say, it's funny. It sounds like you can relate to college students in that you've been in just as much school as college students have been in, if not more so.
Probably way too much.
Too much? Yeah. Well, I was talking to Ricky before this and I said, gosh, neurobiology at Emory and all the different accomplishments. And I said, you are hands down the most qualified person we have ever had on a podcast. So add that to your resume as well. Automatically the most qualified podcast guest of all time. But again, thank you for doing this with us.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about something that is, if I can say this way, is so important, but so often completely unknown, I think, in especially in Rome and in the Rome area, and that is the status of foster care in our city, but more than that, how we can help. Is that fair to say, just off the cuff, that foster care is this extremely important ministry, extremely important thing, but so often it's just completely unknown?
Absolutely. And I think, that takes us back to the Faith Coalition for Families, because that is exactly why Allison Wooders and I kind of started that several years ago. Well, it's probably been about 5 or 6 years ago, because we recognized we just happened to be in places where we knew the crisis. But we recognized that, gosh, this community is filled with folks who, if they know that there's a need, a hurt, they want to help address it, right? But they didn't know. And at the time, back in 2016, we had a real crisis in our community that we had in the state of Georgia. Our county was the worst in terms of the number of children in care to the number of available foster homes for them to go to.
Let me be sure especially in college, right? Well, let's back up for the lecture so we can get the notes. So Floyd County, which is where Barry and Shorter and all these universities are, Floyd County is the lowest ranked or the worst in Georgia, or at least in 2016.
In 2016, yes.
In terms of the number of foster children versus the number of available families for them.
That's correct. So we had around 438 children in care.
Okay.
We had fewer than 10 defects foster homes to care for them, right? So, a real crisis, because what that brings on then is if children come into care in our community, there is no place for them to go, then they end up all over Georgia in homes, as far as South Georgia, Savannah.
Wow.
And so what we recognize in that, for the child, not only have they been removed from their home, their birth home, but now they've been removed from their school. Their classmates and friends.
Right.
Maybe that teacher that really meant something important in their church. Everything they know.
Right.
And so they're being uprooted and taken to not only a home that they don't know, right? But a whole community, a school, that they don't know. And so it just re-traumatizes children who have already suffered from some trauma.
So even if they're like, if I'm born in Floyd Hospital right here in Rome, and I'm from Rome, and my extended family, cousins, etc., are from, which is the state of a lot of people, I think, in the Armurchie and Rome area. Even if I'm from here, even if I'm third or fourth generation from here, if I need to go into foster care and there isn't foster care available in Rome, I have to be taken out of this community somewhere else, even as far as South Georgia. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it happens for the majority of our children.
My gosh.
That is not what our community is about, right?
Right.
We want to care well for
Yes.
our children and be that community that invites other children in need in,
Sure.
and serves them. So, it's not only for the child, and on the trauma front, is it tragic, but it's also for the family and the whole effort to reunify. So, we are all about reunifying, restoring families because we worship a God of restoration,
Amen.
right? And so that is always our goal whenever possible to get families who have had to be separated in order to get healthy, bring them back together.
Right.
Well, when a child is placed in South Georgia, it makes it really difficult for them to stay in contact with their family and have the visits that really keep them well connected. So on that front, it really hinders reunification for our caseworkers who are doing this hard work. They may end up with half their week being travel time on the road, right?
Because they're so far away.
Yes, because they have to go and check on the children. And so, if we can get to the place where we have enough homes in our community so that all of our children who have to be placed out of their home can stay in our community, that's when, we can make such a tremendous difference in terms of the trauma our children suffer, in terms of speeding up reunification, all those pieces.
Right. Well, and it sounds like, especially with the reunification part, it's a psychological healing that can take place just as much as a physical healing can take place, right? And the other thing, and it's funny, anytime I bring this up, I feel like I sound so cold-hearted, but when someone has to travel so far, that raises the cost of the taxpayer, right, to help pay for these things. Does that make sense?
It does. And yes, and so that's one of the statistics that we look at that we have to recognize. So we had one of the highest cost of care per child.
Wow, yeah.
In the state as well.
Right. So doing this literally helps everybody, right? So it sounds. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so in light of all this, so that's kind of from 2016 to now, at least. So what is the status of foster care in Rome right now?
Yes. So what I will tell you, the numbers, so we were at 438 children. As of last week, we were at 226, which is a vast improvement. But what we all recognize, right, is the situation with COVID.
Yeah, true.
Right.
True.
And so the number of children in care is down in a lot of communities because children haven't been in places so much in their schools, in this past year, where a lot of the reports come in, that kind of thing. So there is concern that there are children that need to be out of the home, in order for the family to work on issues. But we may just not be aware of that right now.
Right.
But those numbers are, trending better. But the number that is meaningful to me in terms of, the efforts of this community is that we do now have 40 foster homes. Now, we need 150 foster homes, right?
Yes.
If we are to be positioned to care well for our children in a way that gives us options, right? Because not every child is a fit age-wise or history-wise in every home.
Right.
And so we need to be able, when a child comes into care, there should be several options.
Yes.
It's not just there is one empty bed in this house,
Of
right?
course.
That doesn't work. So 150 would be our goal. But having 40 is wonderful. I mean, that's
and that's what I was going to ask. Is that a good improvement? Is that a good sign? Is that a good trend?
I think it is a great trend. And we also recognize that we have a large number of families that have trained and have become adoptive families. So that's how we lose a lot of our foster homes, right, is to adoption. That's the way we want to lose them.
Right. That's good, yeah.
What we don't want is to lose foster homes because they aren't equipped. And so that's a piece that we're really passionate about is ensuring that we don't lose a foster home because we didn't equip and prepare them well, or we're not supporting them well as a community.
Right. So there's still, and you said the number has gone down from 400 and then some down to 200 and then some in terms of foster children in the area.
Yes.
Which again sounds encouraging at the very least, right?
Right.
But now the goal stays the same, which is equipping more foster families and foster homes so that we can continue, even if it was 25 children, right? That's still 25 too many, right?
Exactly.
So the goal is to get this number down. In comes organizations like Restoration Rome. Can you tell us a little bit about Restoration Rome and what that looks like?
Yes. So Restoration is a hub for foster adoption and family services. And so our goal is to serve our foster adoptive community really well, right? Again, with recruitment, and it's joint recruitment with DFACs and our private agencies that train them, supporting them well. So like hosting our foster parent association at Restoration Rome so that we find churches and organizations to do meals, childcare, that kind of thing. Providing great trainings for them, having resource closet. We have, our clothing closet, the Hope Chest Clothes Closet, where they can access the clothes the children need. We have meals available all the time, freezer meals, that kind of thing. So supporting them well.
Yeah.
But also, again, working on our birth families, working with them and really helping provide ongoing parenting classes, things like that. We have supervised visitation services so that the families can gather and see each other in a really safe setting. And that isn't just, come and be together. It's really therapeutic. So there's pre and post visit counseling for our families that help them address whatever the situation is that caused their children to come into care. And then ongoing resources for them and working with our children as they come into care. So we have the Comprehensive Care Center, and there's an intake portion of that is a very child-friendly, welcoming environment. And that's where, as soon as we're through this COVID crisis, that's where our children, instead of coming into care at the DFAC's office with all the cubicles and all that, they come to Restoration Rome.
Right. And I think as well, if heaven forbid, but it is a reality, if there is possible abuse or things going on, that Restoration Rome is a place where the child can be examined and be sure that this is all done by the book and in a caring environment as well, right?
Absolutely. So, we work, again, closely with DFACs. DFACs would be, right, the agency bringing a child into state care, but they would bring them to our location, and we would work directly with them to ensure that the child is coming into an environment they feel really safe in. Yeah. And we can speak to any immediate needs. So it may be a warm meal. So we have the kids' cafe. It may need be cleanup. So we have Bath and Beyond. They can put on a little bathing suit and get cleaned up. It may be
clothing donations as well.
Yes, right. It may be lice treatment. So Lice Clinics of America that could address that quickly is right there in the building. And then, as you say, the medical check.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You said it key right there in the building. All of those resources are available to children and or the foster families in need and the birth families in need through Restoration Rome.
Absolutely. And I think, you're hitting on one of the things we were trying to solve for, was accessibility. Yeah. Because what we recognized is, again, a lot of families have transportation issues, right? And, our foster families, they may have several children in their care, and they have doctor's appointments and therapy appointments and all these places that they have to get all across town. And so what we were trying to do is make this accessible hub where it's one stop, where you can come and get all of these needs met in this one place. And so that accessibility piece for folks needing services was key, but it's also accessibility for folks that want to get involved. Right, yes. Right? Yes. Because that was a piece, as we would share with churches, there's a crisis, right? Yes, yes, and you need to get involved. We were saying, you can become a CASA, right? And we're pointing them here. You go here and over here, all these places. And so we would leave
Yep.
That church setting, perhaps, and folks are still kind of confused, like, okay,
Right.
where
You get lost in the
exactly?
shuffle of, right.
So
right.
now, with the hub, we're able to say to churches, hey, just send your folks our way.
Yes.
And within that building, like, there's so many ways to get involved.
Right.
And we would argue there's a way for everybody to get involved, and we can help point them to that.
Yeah.
So that accessibility piece was huge.
And I think that's so key too, especially, as someone who enjoys volunteering for different things, I can get very excited to volunteer for something, but then as I have to get shuffled through 3 different offices and speak to 3 different, and none of these 3 people that I'm talking to is the person that got me excited in the first place. Right. Now my passion has gone down. And I have to commute to and from, and streamlining that process is a way, I think, to help volunteers stay passionate about what they're doing until they actually see the students or the families, and then it just, I think, takes care of itself sometimes. But that's just so helpful. This sounds awesome. Restoration Rome sounds like such a great tool, and it's in, and this is just one quick thing before we get into our last question. It's in Rome, right? Where is Restoration Rome located?
Yes, so it's in the old Southeast Elementary School building, right. Over on Crane Street.
Right.
It is located right in an area of our community that the Casey Family Foundation, which is the biggest foundation really in the U.S. focused on the foster crisis.
Yeah.
They had identified kind of the square mile that happens to be right around Southeast Elementary and now Restoration Rome, that as their a community of hope for Floyd County. So we're right in the heart of a lot of need.
Right.
The Lord, had a plan, and that school happened to be available and empty. And
the Restoration Rome building is the old elementary school building. Okay,
absolutely.
Gotcha. Right.
And yes, and we're just repurposing it.
Yeah.
And building it out as we need to, in kind of piece by piece.
Great. So as we look at Restoration Rome, and now we know where it is. So I guess the question is, with 2 college campuses here, and then 3 as well as with Georgia Highlands too, how can college students in the area who maybe are passionate about this or just want to learn more about this, all right, what's the next step for them? How can they help?
Yes, absolutely. And we have tremendous help from so many of our students. So we have lots of students who will decide to do an internship with us, and there's so many agencies operating in our building in the child welfare arena that they have a lot of opportunities in that way.
Right.
So I would encourage, folks that are interested in that way. But in non-COVID days, like we love to host groups. Like, so we may have a sorority group or a service organization that just reaches out and says, hey, we'd like to come help. And so we're able to plug them in. It may be things as diverse as the yard work, right?
Yes.
Right?
Sorting the clothes.
Something exactly.
Right.
It may be helping with childcare. Always a need. And our young folks love having college students, right? That want to come in and provide childcare, because the college students tend to have a little more energy than us 50-some-year-olds. So they tend to be a lot more fun. But what I would say about that is, because we're really working on equipping our community to care well for children who have come from traumatic backgrounds, when you participate in things like childcare at Restoration Rome, you're actually having an opportunity to learn about some of that, because we're deliberate about helping equip our volunteers well to care for the children. But lots of opportunities. And what I love to encourage is for groups to come over and just walk the building. We love providing tours so folks can walk the building, because it's so much fun to us to do those tours. And there may be 20 or 30 folks in a tour, and we see eyes light up. This person's eyes light up over in the care center about the child care piece, or this, students, eyes light up when they see the YMCA after school program, and they know, I could be a part of that. Right. Yeah. So that to me is what I love, because everybody's fit's going to be different based on their gifts and talents, and so we just get excited about helping folks find their fit. So we don't look at it as, we want you to come in and we want to just tell you what we need. And you respond to that. And we really are more interested in helping you identify how you can serve, right? And so, again, we just love inviting groups in for things like that. And we'll be resuming that soon.
Sure.
But there's also, I would just say, you kind of mentioned that whole equipping piece. We always have trainings going on that are open and free to the community. In trust-based relational intervention, or TBRI, that model for really caring well for children and adults who've experienced trauma. And so we think that is a great way for folks to just learn and understand.
Yeah.
Because we all want to be well equipped to care for folks whose lives we're stepping into.
Yeah, 100%. So just to back up here, so you've got, and these are just a few of the options, but for college students, you've got internships, especially in the in multiple areas of social work and working with foster families and with birth families and children. Groups can come and help. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to get back to that. Childcare, volunteering, but also training for these volunteers. And then also coming and taking a tour, which I guess leads to the last thing that I would say too. John Smith has no interest in foster care per se. That's just not really where he's being led. But even he can help just in terms of raising awareness, right? Awareness is huge when it comes to fighting this battle.
Absolutely. And that's, again, just sharing, hey, have you heard about Restoration Realm, right? I mean, just starting those kind of conversations.
Or just taking the tour and seeing what this is. Yeah.
That is key. Or, are you aware, right? That, we have a lot of children in foster care.
Yeah.
Starting those kind of conversations and saying, gosh, identifying your gifts and talents, right? And saying, okay, how could these possibly be used in this arena?
Even like a group of students who's not necessarily interested or gifted, but they still would like to they can at least come and take the tour and learn more about it, and then they can share it with someone who maybe does want to pursue this avenue. They just don't know that it exists, right?
That's right.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
So I think it's like just being passionate about what the Lord's passionate about, right? And He is passionate about caring well for orphans, and it's our children that we're talking about. And so, whatever that looks like, again, it may be through conversations, it may be through tangible actions, whatever it is, but there is a way for everybody to have a positive impact
100%.
On the situation.
100%. One of the things, and I may be putting you on the spot, and it's perfectly fine if not, but we also like to ask for any further resources or things that students might be interested in terms of like books or podcasts or articles. One that I would recommend is a book called Adopted for Life by Russell Moore. Really puts the spiritual aspect of adoption, but also just a great read for anybody who is curious about that avenue, but also it leans into a very, very Christian side to what's going on with that. Other things like that off the top of your head? I hate to put you on the spot like that.
Oh, no, absolutely. I have some stacks
overflowing,
of great resources. But, I think CAFO, Christian Alliance for Orphans, has some wonderful resources, right, to check out around.
What is it called again, sorry?
Christian Alliance for Orphans, or CAFO. Right. Okay. Wonderful resources around foster care and adoption. One of those that I would, if anybody is interested in that journey, fostering adoption, there is the foster journey, which kind of leads you through the right questions about motivation and expectations. So that's more for people interested on that front. But if you want to understand kind of some of the impact again of trauma and how we can care well for folks, and I will say it is important for us all to understand when we talk about trauma and specifically adverse childhood experiences, right? We know 3 out of 5 Georgians have experienced at least one, right? Yeah. So it's all of us.
Right.
It may be something like being in a home with substance misuse issues or domestic violence, but it may be divorce. So there's lots of things that impact a child and how they grow up. And so if folks want to really kind of delve into some of that, the connected child, is a great book by Dr. Karen Purvis and Dr. David Cross. And it really introduces the trust-based relational intervention model that I was talking about, TBRI.
Right.
So any resources with TBRI, we have found that is great trauma-informed care that is biblically consistent.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Great.
And so we are very comfortable with that in that way.
100%. 100%.
So great resource.
This sounds awesome. This sounds fantastic. So helpful, so informative. Mary Margaret, thank you so much for being with us today.
It has been my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing lots of college students for Restoration Room.
Us too. For more information on this topic, message us on Instagram at PVN College. Listen to the PVN College podcast through Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Watch this podcast on Instagram TV at PVN College or on our YouTube page, Pleasant Valley North. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.